You've found the Tend the Flame podcast. I'm so glad you're here. This is just a chat episode. So if you are looking for the follow-up to the energy centers, depending episode, we're doing a series on that. It's picked back up. You want to look for the Power of the Voice episode or go backward to the emotional episode. And we'll be moving into new content. But I took a break for the summer season, and some of you actually reached out and asked me about it. So I'm going to take that as a lead to share you why, and factually, logistically, and then the lesson that I learned from it. So if you listen to Tend the Flame, which here you are, here you are listening, I take it, I love feedback. The idea of this podcast, even though it's so fun to own a microphone, is to put out content to uplift and to educate. One of my favorite words is to inspire. And sometimes the word inspire, because maybe it's etheric, the taking in of the breath, that it doesn't feel grounded. And so to very literally take you where you are in your day, especially if your neck was bent towards your phone or towards a bill or towards a frustration and your shoulders had kind of rolled into constriction, I am here. This podcast is for you to drop back into center and exhale. Uplift your eyes skyward and educate you on practices and philosophies and perspectives to inspire you to bring your brilliance back into the world because we need you. Now, for those of you who are new, my name is Kate Brenton, and I am a holistic teacher. I do healing work, and I have a book. We identify ourselves on those things as podcasts to orient, and it's important to do that. But basically, I help people. I love helping people. I once had a professional coach do this assessment, and I apologize, I don't remember the tool that she used. And when she asked me all of her questions, there was like 74 questions. At the end, she said, "You literally are empowered by connection and helping people. Like you're powered, like that's not a marketing stick for you. That is literally how you're powered." And they said, "Yeah, that's how I'm empowered. That's why I've been teaching for so long. It's all over my astrology chart." So, okay, so owning that is this is my place to bring you into the worldwide classroom of like-hearted individuals that know that things are supposed to be better than they are. That being human is an honor, that we all have a divine spark and we have a purpose and we have gifts, and all of our gifts are good, right? All of them, all of them. And that we're here in a curriculum of life to advance our soul growth, right? And enjoy ourselves while we're here, because sometimes it gets a little tricky. So this summer, summer of 2024, I there was a lot of deconstruction. I can't tell you that it was significant externally to anyone else, but when I went to, and as I just talked about the power of voice, when I went to use the microphone, I was breaking one of my promises. And when I started this podcast, that I would only create if I had something of value to share. And I have tussled with the idea of consistency with the podcast, but then I realized there actually is not a divergence, because I believe in the power of cyclical living. I believe in living in accordance with nature. Did I buy kiwis today at the grocery store that do come from across the world? Yes. What does it Walt Whitman say? Do I contradict myself? Will vary. Then um, I have universes inside of me, coming to peace with the fact that we are brilliant and divergent and imperfect. But in general, I do my best to live in accordance with the seasons, because I'm a human being. Yeah, I mean, you want me, if you're here, as you are here, not if, as you are here, there is a high likelihood that you realize this as well. But I want to remind you that we are cyclical beings. We live in a day and a night. We live to output and create, and we are also asked to be silent and listen and pause. That's part of how we work correctly. And even if you live in a place of the world that does not have four seasons, as I have spent a chunk of time, you don't need to have a widespread temperature change to be in tune of part of the year where there is a great output and part of the year that is less externally focused. It's just how the planet was created. There is a great book that I read recently, The Power of the Dark. It's by Clark Strand, who wrote The Way of the Rose, which I also recommend, but it was about the dark goddess. And the title of it is slightly off for the depth of the book, in my personal opinion. But I mean, thousands of million, so many people are reading his book, he doesn't need my opinion on it. But I didn't feel like the title would have invited me in the way that I came into the book was from a friend recommending it. That to say, it talks a lot about why we need pause, why we need to befriend the dark again. When I moved from Philadelphia the first time to Hawaii, um, I lived on a road that eventually I lived on a road that had no lights. And I remember being dropped off at night, like there was a gathering or something I went to, and I had told the car that they could stop the person, my friend that was dropping me off. I said, just drop me off here. She's like, are you going to walk down the dirt road? Like my house was like halfway, like a half a mile down the dirt road to the left. I wasn't afraid of anything. I mean, we lived at a base of a mountain and I didn't know enough about the pigs to be afraid of them. And I wasn't afraid. I mean, that was one of the biggest gifts Hawaii gave me is she un, she untethered a copious amount of constraint that grew from seeds of fear, programming of fear, that were necessary because of different environments. And I haven't lived in catastrophic environments. I just lived in environments where you always turned on the light and you always locked the door, and you locked the door and you turned on the light and you locked the door. I mean, you locked the door. There was just so much door locking. There's just so much door locking. And the times have changed, unfortunately, and I'm sure there's a lot more door locking now than when I lived there, at least in the part that I live on. But I know there's a lot of doors that are still unlocked. So I remember that night. I'd been living there like maybe a year. I'm not sure. And I remember being like, all these other people are like walking around barefoot and not locking their car doors and like showering outside and just living in this communion of nature. And I had just seen it long enough, but wasn't really in that cadence. And that when the car innocently dropped me off, I made a decision that night to befriend the dark. And I got out of the car and I walked down the road and I walked to the house and I knew where I was. And I stopped turning on lights all the time at night. I just stopped. We're not supposed to have lights on all the time. I then fast forward, and these are the gifts of Hawaii. You fast forward, I lived in an Ohana unit up the hill from a main house, and my friends lived in the house at the bottom. And I would walk up at night from the bottom of the house to the light, and they would like take a flashlight, and I'd say no. And if you're wondering, like, didn't you ever fall? Yes, of course I fell. But you know what happens when you walk barefoot on land? You learn the land. Your feet learn how to speak to the land, and the land speaks back, and you slow down. And when you slow down, you don't trip quite so much. So after a year, I could walk up and down that hill in the middle of the night. I didn't need any lights. I mentioned Myron Golden a couple of times, I think on my Substack, but if not here, I highly recommend him. And he was talking about, in reference to the Bible, which is something I didn't normally talk about, but I do know. And he was saying about how you can't go by what you see, you have to go by faith is by what you hear. And when you turn off the lights and you go outside, you listen. You listen. That's what you do is you listen because your eyes can't serve you there. I love looking at things. I'm a huge reader. I'm always reading. So don't so the same time, right? Do I contradict myself? Well, very very well then I contradict myself. I will get in bed with a good book and turn the light on and do the opposite. But the idea is also that sometimes I've noticed recently if I'm on social media too much or on my phone too much, I light a candle and I do Tradika, which is something I teach in one of my classes. I mean, I teach it. You don't need me to teach it to you. You can Google Tradika. You can look up that eye meditation. So let's speak plainly. But in the woman's energetics course that I teach, I use Tradika because a lot of times we want more. We want to understand more. We want to heal more. We want to feel more, and we want to do more, but we don't integrate and digest that which is stagnant and stuck. Darkness does that. Your eyes get a break. They're not consuming and translating. You're not overwhelmed with your senses. If, at 8 or 9 o'clock, this is being recorded, whenever it finds you is the perfect time. But if you're listening to this close to the recording, we're entering in the autumnal season and in the East Coast and of the United States, United, hopefully, States of America. And the light is changing. And so, like at 8 o'clock at night, you can be closer friends with nighttime. Light a candle just one night instead of just being with Netflix the whole night. Like, light a candle. Don't, when you go to bed, don't turn on the light in your room or turn it on and then light a candle and turn off the main light and 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 see what that does. In Antarctica, you look at the candle. You let the light of the candle clear you just for a couple seconds. It's so simple. I mean, yes, it would be preferable that it was unscented. Okay, beeswax if you're going to get fancy. But just whatever, but don't make it a thing. Just you light a candle. When I wake up in the morning, I light a candle. I do not turn on the lights in the kitchen. I light a candle first. And I find that if there is, because houses have movement, if there is a light that goes on first, my body is kind of like I turn it like it's jarring, you know? I like to ease in because if I've just slept and now I have risen in the morning light, although it's normally dark when I wake up on purpose. And then I can marry my mind with my day. I can let my spirit inhabit my form, and I can light the candle that I have of intention and first give thanks. Like in the lighting of the candle is my deference of I would like to be oriented in my day before it begins. So I make the effort to wake up before the rest of the household so that I can light a candle in a dark kitchen for a few minutes while I make my coffee and receive clarity in the dark. So what started as a chat, this is happening more and more. What started as a chat to let you know why I stopped this summer was that because I needed to befriend my voice in a different way. And if you're a longtime listener, what is it? There's these jokes about the Philadelphia sports channels because they get really vehement about them. And it's like a longtime listener, first time caller. If you've never left me a comment, I am going to beseech you to send me a line and give me some feedback on what you want to hear more of, because I would like, as this winter season comes, to be offering upliftment and education and for your mind to alight on the intention you have for yourself to help deepen your focus. Because it seems that we all have something playing in the background and we all have information coming towards us at a lot more quickly and at a higher content level. So let's make it nutritive. Let's not snack on a candy bar all day long through social media. I'm reminding myself of that. Someone recently said if you are attuned to the dynamics at play and you feel that by simply scrolling on social media to see cat videos, for me it's dogs, and you think you are not participating in the disconnection, you're wrong. And I thought, oh man, that's true. So becoming intentional again on creating this space for you. So this summer, I stopped creating because there wasn't enough silence. And summer, I realize, is just not podcast time for me because summer is when you're on the East Coast, you are out and you are expressing and you are doing. And then when fall comes, you are integrating and you are contemplating and you are creating from a different space. So from now on, and here's a little hot tip, if you're someone that is a creator and you always have like 1,000 ideas and then like the consistency or format is something difficult, like I came to this realization probably last summer, honestly, that I wasn't going to do um, summer recording. And then instead of completing, it like tipped off. So I just now the content calendar just has a big X from from June to August on the podcast, and we will just be sharing repeat episodes. Because there's a lot of really good ones. If you're new here, there are some phenomenal episodes with some really brilliant beings. Um, and if you're in a place of a little bit of isolation, whether it's physical isolation or mental isolation, and you feel you have no one to connect to in your wavelength, I think podcasts can really serve in that way, that you take in the mindset that you can do anything, that you can set your mind on something, that it is okay to have a season of non-creation. It is okay to pause. You're not crazy for wanting to have quiet time, and you're not crazy for tuning into the God that takes care of you. That's what this podcast is for, to tend that internal flame and to remind you that there are others like you, and there are others that need you, and that sometimes to go fast, you have to go slow. And sometimes to create, it's time to sit and come gather with other like souls around a fire and remember why you're here. So if you're new, thank you. If you've been here, thanks for coming back when you saw the new episodes. So this summer was basically a recalibration. And then as I mentioned in the Power of Voice episode, a friend I had asked, so something for you to take forward into your day. I was really trying to I was aiming to get clear about the podcast. And I thought, okay, I need to tune in. Here's the funny thing. I went back and I realized that I had inadvertently stopped at the heart before the voice. And I don't believe in coincidences. And so I realized, oh, I'm being asked to cultivate my voice in a different way. And it's time to get clear on that. And so I set forth a question, within myself, to my higher self, to my clearer self, to ask the divine, the creator, to be like, okay, what is the point with the podcast? Like, do I double down on it? Do I do a farewell episode? And within 24 hours, I was on the phone with somebody who said, can I ask you a question? And I said, sure. She said, what's going on with the podcast? And then she went on to share some really beautiful reflections on it. And then also referenced an astrology podcast that also goes fallow for seasons. And what I got back was clarity to continue. And what I diverted was from shame for pausing. Because when you create, there must be seasons of non-creation. Just like when you have a gorgeous day, you must have night. You must have night. And I encourage you, wherever you are, whether you are entering fall or are entering spring, depending on where you are in the world, that you tune into the temperature of the natural world and what she is offering you, and ask her questions. Take the seasons and the earth beneath your feet and the sky above your head into consideration when you ask your questions. And then open your heart and open your ears and listen for answers. That's how we tend the flame, right? We let the oxygen find the spark that never goes out and rekindles us. So if you have a moment, please let me know if you have questions or something you'd like to hear more about, because I believe these are interactive conversations, and I appreciate everyone that writes. There are, if you're people that like to read stuff, I write on Substack at Sit and Write, and those posts come out about twice a month. And we're contemplating having a writing circle, once a season there to gather. So speak what you will, ask for what you want. It might not be me that you get the answer from, but when you ask, it shall be given. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, my appreciation for those of you who share, who write a comment, who hit the 5-star button on Spotify, who bring up the post onto social media, because that is how this is found. And you play a part in this fire. So thanks for tuning in. Be well.